You check your bank account. You flinch. You close the app and tell yourself you'll deal with it later. That moment feels personal. It feels like a flaw in you specifically. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain is not bad with money. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do thousands of years ago, in a world where money did not exist at all. Picture a man standing alone. Gray clothes, slumped shoulders. A cramped little room around him, nothing on the walls. This is where most people start. Not because they are lazy, not because they are stupid, because their brain is still running software built for a different world entirely. Here is what that software was built for. Survival today, not wealth in 20 years. For most of human history, gathering more food than you could eat right now was pointless. It would spoil. It would attract predators. The smart move, the evolutionarily correct move, was to consume what you had and worry about tomorrow when tomorrow arrived. That instinct never left you. It just changed targets. Food became money, and your brain still treats both the same way. So when you see a paycheck, some ancient part of your mind whispers the same thing it whispered 50,000 years ago. Eat now. Worry later. The first habit breaks that whisper directly. Psychologist Walter Mischel ran an experiment in the 1960s that became famous decades later. He sat children alone in a room with one marshmallow. He told them if they waited 15 minutes without eating it, they would get a second one. Some children grabbed it instantly. Others stared at the wall, sang to themselves, sat on their hands, anything to make it through. Mischel followed these children for years afterward. The ones who waited tended to do better in school, better in relationships, and better financially as adults. This was never really about marshmallows. It was about a skill almost nobody is taught. The skill of tolerating discomfort now for something better later. Watch the stickman. He gets paid. His hand reaches for all of it, the same instinct your ancestors had toward food. But this time he stops. He sets a portion aside before he touches the rest. Small, almost nothing. But something. His room is still gray, his shoulders are still slumped, but there is now one object on the shelf behind him that wasn't there before. Why does this feel so hard? Because every cell of your evolutionary history is screaming at you to take the marshmallow. The second habit is even stranger, because it isn't about money at all. It's about identity. Economist Richard Thaler, working alongside psychologist Daniel Kahneman, studied something called loss aversion. Their research showed that losing money hurts roughly twice as much as gaining the same amount feels good. This sounds like a footnote. It is not. It explains almost every financial decision you have ever made. It explains why you keep a losing investment far longer than you should, hoping it bounces back, unable to accept the loss. It explains why you avoid checking your accounts after a bad week. Your brain isn't protecting your money. It's protecting you from the feeling of loss, even when avoiding that feeling costs you more in the long run. People who build wealth learn to override this, not by feeling less, by acting anyway. The stickman makes a decision that stings. He moves money into something boring, something that won't feel exciting for years. There is no dopamine here, no reward, just a quiet, almost invisible choice made despite the discomfort. His posture straightens slightly, still gray, still small, but upright now. The third habit goes back even further than money. It goes back to the earliest humans and how they actually survived. Anthropologist Sarah Hill has researched something often overlooked in how early humans accumulated resources. Survival rarely depended on one person's effort alone. It depended on networks, shared knowledge, traded skills, group cooperation. A lone hunter starves more often than a hunter embedded in a tribe. Modern wealth follows the same pattern, hidden under different words. Most people don't get rich purely through individual effort. They get rich through relationships. Mentors. Information passed from someone who already walked the path. Opportunities that arrive specifically because someone trusted them enough to offer it. Watch the stickman. A second figure appears beside him. Just one. Someone who explains something he didn't know. The room gets slightly bigger. Still simple, but no longer just four walls and silence. Why does asking for help feel so uncomfortable? Because somewhere deep in your evolutionary memory, admitting you don't know something used to signal weakness to the group. Today, it does the opposite. It signals exactly the thing that lets you grow. The fourth habit is the one almost everyone skips, because it doesn't reward you immediately. Psychologist BJ Fogg, who studies behavior change at Stanford, found something counterintuitive. Massive transformation rarely comes from massive action. It comes from tiny actions, repeated so consistently that they become identity rather than effort. This matters because your brain evolved to notice big, immediate threats and rewards. A predator in the grass, a piece of fruit on a branch. It did not evolve to notice slow, compounding change. But money compounds slowly. Wealth is built in decades, not days. The brain that kept your ancestors alive is almost perfectly mismatched for the timeline wealth actually requires. The stickman doesn't make one dramatic move. He repeats one small action, again and again. Nothing visually changes for a long stretch. This is intentional. This is what real compounding looks like. Boring, until suddenly it isn't. Then, almost without warning, the room changes color. Subtle gold creeps into the background. The shift took longer than anything else in this video. That's the point. The fifth habit is the strangest one because it isn't really an action at all. It's a relationship with time itself. Researchers studying delayed gratification across cultures have found something consistent. People who think further into their own future make different choices today than people who only think a few weeks ahead. This is sometimes called future self-continuity. It simply means how connected you feel to the version of yourself that exists 10 or 20 years from now. If that future version feels like a stranger, you will not sacrifice anything for them. Why would you? They're basically someone else. But if that future self feels real to you, almost like someone you already know, the math changes completely. Saving isn't a sacrifice anymore. It's a gift you're giving someone you actually care about. The stickman pauses. He looks forward, toward an older version of himself standing in the distance. Fully colored now, upright, calm. For the first time in the video, he isn't reacting to fear or instinct. He's choosing, deliberately, for someone who doesn't exist yet. This is the habit underneath all the other habits. By the end, the stickman is unrecognizable from where he started. Tall posture, full color, a room with light in it, objects on the walls, space to move. Nothing about his environment handed this to him. No lottery ticket, no sudden windfall. Just 5 small departures from instinct, repeated long enough to become identity. None of this happened because he stopped being human. It happened because he learned to notice when his ancient brain was giving him outdated advice and chose differently anyway. You check your bank account. This time, you don't flinch. You see a number and somewhere behind it a pattern you finally understand. Thanks for watching.